Word. Alex, good to see you again, man. After having a couple of weeks of only being able to catch you on the late night show, which has been great, by the way. You and Matt have been doing good stuff over the past few weeks. Y'all check it out on the Chief Sports Network app. But welcome in, man. Good to see you.
It's good to be back. Sorry, I still do not have the background behind me figured out yet, but we'll get there. And had our late night show last night. Got to showcase our new intro that JC made for us that we both really, really like. So appreciate you doing that, and good to be back with you guys.
Yeah, man.
You like it? Okay, good. That song's an original song written as well for the late night show.
There you go.
It's a bluesy theme.
Yeah, it was good. We loved it.
Want to make you feel like you're watching Law and Order or something. I don't know. I'm Detective Alex Jones. Y'all should put that sound from Law and Order. The
especially with my just white background right now, it'd fit in pretty good.
I tell you what,
look like you're in a holding cell. This is
it's like where the judge all right, next case on docket number Spartanburg County 0304951 Jones Alex.
Yeah.
Yes, Your Honor.
If you get a wide shot right now of Alex, slumped over in last night's suit.
I tell you, the stash comes out though with that background. You and Phil are twins, dude.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
It takes me a little bit to get there, but maybe I can get there.
It's getting there, dude. It's noticeable. So you look great. Well, good news last night, and I'm glad. I'm glad you guys did late night because it went back and forth. I thought 50-50 Carolina would get him. And then I walked in from the bedroom, I was kind of in the bedroom on the site on my phone. I walked in here and I looked up at my tweet deck, and Hale had in 4 seconds ago had sent out the tweets. I saw it. And Kamari Blair, I talked earlier today about, the background on him and also, that I think he's got a lot of upside. If I'm talking about ceiling, and I don't want this to sound like sour grapes, I put on the bigspur.com today that I would say this if it was reversed, if Blair had gone to Tennessee and Shabazz had come to Carolina, I think he's got a higher ceiling than JB. Now, I think his floor is much lower. I think he's much more. All offensive linemen are raw to a certain extent, but Kamari's noticeably raw when you watch him. But boy, Alex, on film, he does some things that you don't see very often for a big guy that size.
Yeah, it's pretty fun watch his junior highlights. You see it I think it's one of those first 2 or 3 clips. I think Hale may have posted this on Twitter last night. Like, he's getting to 20 yards down the field to go and block a safety or block a cornerback down the field. Like, he's really athletic, and especially at that size at 6'5.5", I think is what we have him listed at. And he almost maybe look a little bit taller than that too. But, he can move. He gets downfield. He plays with a mean streak. Like, his highlights are full of him just finishing blocks, getting some pancake blocks. I thought a really good pickup for South Carolina to kind of add to Zion Giles and Anthony Baxter in that class. And obviously now you got, the big one left target left, a 5-star for that offensive line haul, but, a good start in that offensive line class. And, I think with Blair, it's just one of those, it's a pretty big recruiting win just because, he came in for that official visit and, really good things coming out of that visit. Maybe he thought that he would go ahead and lock it down after that visit. There was some talk maybe he wouldn't take the rest of his official visits. And, when he ended up going to Ole Miss and Tennessee, I think you wonder, were they going to be able to keep that momentum just because he was going to go to the in-state Volunteers on that last official visit. And, it was a battle down to maybe even the last second going into that announcement, but South Carolina was able to find a way.
Nice.
Phil, I just sent you a picture of Kamari Blair. And folks, I know that some of you are on podcast and can't see it. You can actually look at the picture. If you go to our YouTube channel and look at the cover for Coffee this morning, the thumbnail, you can see it. But I want to show everybody out there watching at home this picture because, man, this is impressive. So this guy's my stepson's age. My stepson's a starting right tackle for a high school football team. I said, if you ever get down on yourself for not playing college football, this is what you are up against. This guy looks like he's 38 years old. And you want to talk about facial hair? He's got there we go.
Yeah.
Look at that goatee and those guns.
Yeah.
And you see him on the, so there's the eyeball test for you. and then you see him on the field running at full speed like he is. And I think he's very aggressive and mean too. I like the meanness that he plays with.
You also see him in his highlights. He's in a 2-point stance on defense, playing as a defensive end. Like I can't imagine having to block that. And like you see him like chasing down running backs who are running like a little sweep to the other side. Like he's chasing down a running back and catch him and tackle him. Like it's pretty impressive highlights.
Yeah, I didn't, South Carolina over the years, going into Tennessee, going into Alabama, trying to beat the in-state SEC teams on kids, it hasn't worked. A lot of it's geography. I mean, and Clarksville, Tennessee is much closer to UT. I mean, there's two different ways you can go from Clarksville to Columbia. One, down through Chattanooga and through Atlanta. The other, if they ever get I-40 open back up again, you just go through the mountains in Asheville and down, and you got to go through Knoxville to get to Columbia. I mean, it's closer. But, it's been few and far between. Carolina's gotten guys out of Memphis before, which is kind of its own place. Trey Knox, obviously from the transfer portal, came after, he's from Murfreesboro, after he went to Arkansas initially. But it's been tough. I mean, I remember, it was defensive lineman, offensive lineman at Brentwood Academy in Nashville during the Spurrier era. Carolina was right next to my office when I think 24/7, maybe it was Rivals, right next to my office. Carolina or Auburn, because Auburn's right down there. I mean, Tennessee struggles with that too. Anybody west of Nashville, sometimes they go to those Western SEC schools because they're just as close. So getting a kid out of Clarksville like this is tremendous. And at the end of the day, Alex, his mom, what I was told from because heading in, you and I talked about it on the Smorgasbord. I was like, well, this is just the kind of guy you bring in and shoot your shot with. Mm-hmm. He's kind of new to recruiting. He's got a bunch of offers. He's not from right down the road. He's not from a place you normally get talent. We'll see what happens. But from the moment the visit happened on his heart and his mother's heart and all that, the official visit was so good. The Gamecocks were right there, and then that ended up putting them over the top.
Yeah, I think we've seen throughout recruiting for years and years how important a mom's opinion can be in a recruitment. And, I think that's why I say, going into that official visit for South Carolina, I wasn't sure really where Carolina kind of stood with him, kind of as you mentioned, maybe just take your shot. But, I think they really knocked it out of the park when he was in town. And, again, like I said earlier, it kind of looked like potentially maybe he was going to shut it down even before or after his official visit to Carolina. And he one of the others, but, I think just the relationships he had with Lonnie Teasley, Sam Survey, and those guys, the whole coaching staff really kind of just went out there, especially having, the mom on that side, I think kind of helped things too.
Yeah, you got to love the family aspect when everybody's all in together and, you're not talking about an uncle agent.
Yeah, agent that's not really enough. Yeah, and money wasn't really. I mean, I know there were some reports on some Tennessee boards, message boards, that Carolina had lost a lot of play. They just went all in on him and got him. That's not my understanding at all. It wasn't Tennessee or Carolina. Neither one was a bidding money situation.
Yeah,
there was no bidding war. This was a good old. It's like Pierre Dean, good old fashioned recruiting battle. Now, Alex, some folks say, and I mentioned this on Coffee today, I want to ask your opinion. I think probably because of what's been going on with losing some targets bitterly, I guess you could describe it lately, people are all automatically going to skew negative. And when you say he's 50-50 and can't make up his mind, the automatic assumption is that, he's probably going to flip. It's not over. And I think when kids that go back and forth do that, the team that doesn't get him usually says that. I've seen it at Carolina. 2 weeks later, the kid's buying furniture for his dorm and solid and trying to recruit players out of your class. I mean, I think, there's a difference between being woefully indecisive and in many cases when the kid can't make up his mind, keeps committing, a serial committer, or someone that's more in love with the process than maybe actual football and making a sound decision. those guys usually don't pan out. Sometimes they do, but usually they're bust city if a kid just can't stop being recruited. I think you get it. It's almost like you get addicted to it. I'm addicted to the fame.
That's right.
I think Eminem said that.
Courtney.
But you did. There's a difference between that and a guy that's like, sets a. And my understanding is Kamari set this deadline for himself to make himself make a decision.
Yeah.
And then you do go back and forth and you have a hard time deciding and all that. Many times what happens there, and I've seen this more than I've seen, because I've seen my share of down to the wire decisions. Most of them have not gone Carolina's way, especially with out-of-state players. Or when it's an in-state player, it's like the fans almost get offended that there's another school and they're going to get away. Yeah. But most of the time, why they made themselves make the decision is they don't really enjoy the decision-making process. It's like it's not that they can't decide, or it's probably they don't like, they don't like, after this school was so nice to me and good to me, telling them no. It's unpleasant for them as far as who they are, as far as making decisions. And so once they get it out of the way, that's it, because they won't know part of going back to the process. And so there's a difference there between guys that are addicted to the process that can't make up their mind, and they do it, I don't want to say for attention, but for attention. And then the guys that truly didn't enjoy making that decision, they're happy with their decision, but they didn't enjoy the process of it. Those guys usually stick. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I kind of get the sense that, he was just ready to make the decision to get the recruiting process over. Like, I think it'd be one thing too, that, if he committed to South Carolina and South Carolina it was really kind of out of the blue. Like, it was one where South Carolina really wasn't in it and he just picked South Carolina. I think you would worry more, but I don't get the sense that's what's here. Obviously, we know South Carolina was very much in this for a while, since they offered it in January. I think I think it's just one of those where he wanted to go ahead and get this decision over, go ahead and focus on his senior season, just like you're really seeing a lot of these guys right now. They want to get this process over so they can focus on winning as many games in their final year of high school. So, I don't think there's really any worry of, is the commitment not as strong just because he, how fast he wanted to decide. Like, I think he just wanted to get the process over. And, I think at the end of the day, South Carolina was where he felt he was most comfortable and at best.
Sorry, my timing as far as knowing when Alex is going to end his sentence is off a bit, because I mute my mic. I was actually signing up for a newsletter. I was listening, but I just wasn't watching. I mute my mic and my mouse is way up top.
Yeah.
I don't want you to have to hear me breathing, or let's say I sneeze or something. I don't want that, so I always mute it. So that's why there's a delay. Kreger in the Nana Sports chat box says he looks like a defensive lineman, and yeah, he does play some defensive line. He's a big old guy. Steven wants to know in the Nana Sports chat box house if you think this was a surprise. Maybe I'm a little surprised that it went Carolina's way based on how things are going. I'm not surprised though that he liked Carolina enough to commit. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. Like, I wasn't surprised that he committed to South Carolina. I think, I get the sense of why it could be a surprise just because of how things have gone recently, as you mentioned, with some recruiting things and some decisions that haven't gone South Carolina's way. But again, like they were really in this, really coming out of that official visit. They were really in this recruitment and probably led coming out of the South Carolina official visit. And it was just about keeping their momentum that they had, because that's what you always worry about sometimes with these first weekend of official visitors, as these guys, you make an impact on them. You kind of maybe shoot up their recruiting board, and then they're going to go to all these other official visits. And, maybe that momentum that you had built up that first weekend wears off with every other official visit they go on. I think you saw that some, Corey Adams was a guy it was always probably going to be a long shot for that guy. But, South Carolina, had a really good official visit with him, but you knew that he was still going on all those other visits. And, South Carolina was able to keep that momentum. And, Tennessee was right there too. Ole Miss was really in this one too. But it really came down to, in-state Tennessee and South Carolina. But South Carolina, I think, just had the long-standing kind of relationships and built the best relationships. And those were kind of helped win out.
Yeah, I think so. It was good. I really like him. So next guy up is Darius Gray. It's one of those things I don't want to say too loudly. Does that make sense? I mean, we got an audience out there, right, Phil?
Mm-hmm.
But just kind of, I don't want to say secret. I think Carolina's getting him, and I have my reasons for that. I know a lot of LSU team sites believe it, and I can confirm their confidence is real. Again, if you're basing how you feel about the situation on what's happened in the past, both the recent past and the way back, sometimes these decisions don't go Carolina's way, especially on a 5-star offensive lineman. That said, I'm right now, and I'll let everybody know if things change, because they always can. Right now, I'm super confident. I was more worried about Tamarian Watkins when nobody else was, and had no idea about the money thing either. I mean, I was just paranoid about it. Maybe I shouldn't be. And you know that, Alex. I was paranoid about it. Remember, I was paranoid about it. Remember, we talked about this. I feel like a horse's ass for bringing it. I think I jinxed the whole thing. Because I am, of all the ones that I'm like, man, I hate that. Watkins is the one. I could give a flip about these other guys. There's nobody they've lost when I know what they get paid elsewhere that I'm like, they should have paid. I mean, including Watkins for that matter. But, and Watkins is not they should have paid. Watkins is God, that one, I liked him because he's rare. But the rest of them, I could care less. I know that's, I mean, it's good if they get him. If they don't, the program will move on and they'll get somebody just as good or better, in my opinion. But for Gray, I'm confident. What say you?
Yeah, I think so. We talked about it, I think maybe the last time I was on here, how big it was to get him in on that official visit that last weekend, because there was a lot of LSU momentum there. LSU, I think, late spring into the official visit, and one where he took a ton of official visits in the summer, and you wondered, would he go to LSU and, have it be where he's just been on all these official visits and it gets a tiring process. You just hoped he would make it to South Carolina. He did, and I think that kind of puts South Carolina maybe back at the top at this recruitment. And, I think there's a lot, there's still work to be done there. And I mean, I guess because he said, I think he told Brian Doan of 24/7 Sports that he would want to wait till after the season. And, we'll see if it does go till after the season. But I think South Carolina's definitely put themselves in a good spot. And could be one where a stronger, longer theory helps South Carolina here, because they've been after Darius Gray for a long, long time. And to that point, we also said the same thing about Samari Matthews, and you see how that one turned out with his commitment. But they've been after Darius Gray for, it's been years since they've been recruiting Darius Gray, and you think maybe that can help play a big part in this.
I think it already has. I think South Carolina's where he wants to be. Without kind of getting too far in the weeds, LSU's strategy is obviously they're selling kind of their production on the offensive line. It's an old school recruiting thing. I don't think at either spot the money's crazy either way. Which is weird. We're talking about a 5-star player here. So he'll get paid slot value. Slot.
That's right.
He's slot. But I just know some things about the recruitment and how it's sort of unfolding that gives me confidence. But like I said, you never know. I'm not going to sit here and I definitely don't think the LSU folks that are saying LSU's in good shape are wrong, that they've heard that.
Yeah. The one thing I would wonder about this, so if he does wait till after the season, after his senior season, I know he's announced his top 5, I think it was. Do other teams who realize they need an offensive lineman, a 5-star offensive lineman, come back into the picture? And to be clear, I haven't heard that's the case, but you have to wonder, if he does wait till after the season, could that be the case? But I don't think it is, because I get to see it being a South Carolina LSU battle. And I think Tennessee's kind of in it. And I think they're trying to make, trying to put themselves in it, but I think it's really going to come down to South Carolina LSU.
I would lean towards it not making it to the season. I would just lean that way. Maybe it will. I'm not calling the kid. I'm not saying he's wrong. I think right now, it's probably going to. Who knows what will happen, Alex?
Yeah.
Who knows? Who knows what will happen? I did see you put up an article the other day for when you quoted Cole Kubelic. I think that was you about Dylan Stewart.
Yeah.
Your takeaway from that, Cole really had a lot of good things to say. I like Cole because he actually watches film.
Yeah.
And used to play and talks about what he saw on film. He's not just I read the other quote and it was almost like a can of candy, I'm one of those I don't like candy corn people. I guess we'll talk about that during cut, but it sounded like it's like candy corn, like bland, well, blah 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 blah. And of course you have Kyle Kennard on the other side. So blah, blah, I mean, okay, that's that. Well, you can plug that into the EA Sports football game, and that's what the announcers are going to tell you.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But Cole actually looks at the film. Kind of your takeaway from that and Dylan Stewart's outlook this year in general.
I think a lot of the talk around Dylan Stewart right now is like, what can he do without Kyle Kennard on the other side? And I think that's being a little bit dismissive of what Bryan Thomas could do on the other side as well. But, they were talking about that in that interview. And, I think they were getting ready to ask Cole Kubelik, what can he do without Kyle Kennard? And, Cole Kubelik basically kind of said it doesn't matter. I mean, he's that special. Like, Cole kind of talked about from what he saw in the film going up against a Will Campbell at LSU, like what he was able to do in the bend that he can get. He talked about some of the bend that he gets where he's like 3 inches off the ground. And, it's just, that's some of the stuff that you don't see from, seniors in college, some of the stuff that Dylan Stewart can do. And, I think a lot of it, what stands out about Dylan is, how technically sound he is as a freshman last year. And some of the stuff that he did were so advanced from a pass rushing standpoint. And, the biggest things for Dylan Stewart, and I think, is to now just continue to get bigger and stronger, which he absolutely has the frame to do. Like, he was already pretty impressive from that standpoint, but he still has the frame to get bigger and stronger and then continue to be better in the run. And I think that's something that he could learn from Kyle Kennard last year, because Kyle Kennard was really good, both rushing the passer, but he also played the run really well. When other teams didn't want to run to Dylan Stewart, Kyle Kennard was really right there. And so I think, Dylan Stewart's going to be a guy that he's going to take another step more than likely. And he's going to be one too, where a lot of the attention is going to go to Dylan Stewart. Now, that's something that Benjamin Watson was talking about, is that, from a personnel standpoint, you have to account for him, and you can't just account for him with a right tackle or left tackle, whatever it may be. You got to have a tight end chip, and you got to have a running back chipping. And I think that's something that's going to help not only a Bryan Thomas on the other side or whoever else is playing opposite of Dylan Stewart, but those interior guys as well. It's going to force more one-on-ones in there. That's only because that's something that really helped TJ Sanders and Talking Hemingway. And those two and really Boogie Huntley, they maybe didn't need as much help just because they were pretty good themselves, but they got a lot of one-on-ones last year just because of what those two guys on the outside did. And you're going to see a lot of that too this year, because these running backs, tight ends, and tackles are going to be solely focused on trying to get him contained.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen him eat up a guard, a tackle, and a tight end before.
I think it's that Kentucky game.
Yeah, that Kentucky one.
He just blows through a triple team and chases down I forgot his name, the quarterback Kentucky now, that's
okay. He retired.
Yeah, I mean, but that's when you first started. You saw what he did in the Old Dominion game, and then you saw that highlight in the Kentucky game, and he just blows through a triple team like it was nothing.
You think has anybody on the Carolina team take Dylan Stewart in a limbo contest, or are we just going to go ahead and give him the champion of that now?
Probably not with what he's shown. Don't think so.
Yeah, he's definitely limbo world champion.
If right.
All doesn't work out. Do they have that? The limbo world champion?
Oh, we'll have to check on the Ocho, because that would definitely be some ESPN.
Yeah, find that out, Phil. Who is the world champion of limbo?
Is that something that'd be on like ESPN News at 11 o'clock at night or something like that?
Yeah. Let's send it out to Let's send it out to that sounds like, I don't know. Only Mike Morgan could call that and make it sound good.
We were at a restaurant a couple weeks ago as a family, and on the TV in the background was the ESPN 8 or whatever, and they had slippery stare competition.
Do like Mike Morgan or Joe Tessitore or something like that?
Yeah,
Mike Morgan,
yeah.
How about Mike Morgan and Joe Tessitore?
There you go.
Yes.
Joe T, I'll tell you. Yeah, that was beautiful. On the limbo and slippery stare contest.
Oh my goodness!
People, Krager in the Nana Sports chat box. You mentioned Bryan Thomas a little bit. He said his get off is electric. And Bryan Thomas, he'll have a great year, just set the edge and hold up in the run game. But he's twitchy like Kennard was. I agree. Probably a little more, maybe a little more twitchy. But he's 3 inches shorter and obviously about 11 pounds lighter. I don't know if that's changed, but that's a guy that's worked hard. He's always contributed. I think he's a good pass rusher. I think he's his play against the run got better this year. A lot of people don't realize this on goal line and like inside the 5-yard line on that package. He would come in as the defensive end.
Yeah.
So he must be able to play the run. Yeah, I was always wondering why they did it, but then he never really hurt him. So who knows? But it may just be his time to shine because you look and you see some of these articles where they ask anonymous sources, which probably means they're calling their buddy that works inside the Carolina football building and asking them. And now there was some Fred Johnson talk in one of them, but ESPN and CBS and a couple others, they all almost universally mentioned Bryan Thomas Jr.
Yeah, and I think I've mentioned this on here before. Like he kind of, I guess, quietly had a pretty solid season last year. I think 4.5 sacks. Like he was pretty good. I mean, it seems like when he gets in, you watch him, especially when there's an obvious pass down situation. Like he just goes all out. Like it's 100%, and he makes plays. I think the biggest thing for him is just continue to get better in run defense. I think just, you can't, you kind of saw this a little bit last year, just can't just shoot right up the field because a team like Missouri will use that in their zone run concepts and they'll run right past you. But, I think he got better. He continued to get better at that, working under Sterling Lucas every year that he's been at South Carolina. And that's just something that's really kind of interesting to see how that all turns out, just because, one of the interesting things they did last year, kind of middle to end of the season, where it's like they put a Bryan Thomas on the same side as a Dylan Stewart or Kyle Kennard. I can't remember who they put on the outside, but if you put a Bryan Thomas on the outside, like he can get past those tackles in a hurry and get to the quarterback. So, I'm really interested. We know Dylan Stewart's going to be a starter, but Bryan Thomas, I think you could pencil in potentially as a starter on that other edge. But that whole edge room is going to be really interesting to see. Like, George Wilson could be kind of intriguing, I think, just because as a specific pass rushing, obvious pass down type of guy, can he come in and give them something? Could a Jerron Willis, who has shown he can do that in a 3-3-5 type of thing, like that Texas A&M game 2 years ago, he was wreaking havoc off the edge coming after the Texas A&M quarterback. Yeah. So they got a couple of really intriguing options because I think we know what the secondary is going to look like, for the most part. And those linebackers, obviously, Shawn Murphy was a guy that was mentioned by DQ Smith and Nick Barrett as standing out, which was really, intriguing. One of the, most interesting things I think we caught the other day at SEC Media Days, just because I think a lot of the talk has been kind of, what can Justin O do? Or, we know what Fred Johnson, I think, is potential he has this year. But Shawn Murphy, a guy that can bring experience to that linebacker room from what he was able to do at Alabama. And I didn't really fully realize it until the other day when I was putting everything together on that. Like he, when he played in those Final Four games for Florida State, like he was pretty, solid. Like he has some pretty good stats. Like I think that was really interesting. I think he's bringing some leadership along with those other guys and just experience that linebacker room, because they've definitely, that's the one thing for sure that they lost in that linebacker room was just an experience factor. But from a talent standpoint, I think they're still going to be pretty good there.
Yeah, the Shawn Murphy news was interesting. I mean, I heard coming out of spring, because I kind of penciled in Justin O just because, and look, Justin hasn't done anything wrong. I mean, he was really good, they thought. And I think they'll rotate him in. But Murphy was really good this spring too. And so I changed my projected depth chart to put Murphy at the top. And then, that kind of validates what I've been hearing when you hear just questions and the two defensive players mentioning him. People forget he was like a top 100 prospect that signed with Alabama.
Yeah.
So I think if Shawn Murphy's good this year, that's another feather in the cap for the Gamecocks. And I've also heard he's a lot faster than people may think. I was told all three linebackers of those three, they all can run. And at the same time, you mentioned Jerron Willis. And also don't sleep on Jerron Willis either, because he's having a great offseason. So I think they're going to be fine at linebacker. Sometimes people, I mean, I love Debo Williams, love what he's all about. Think the guy is a high character guy, stud, not afraid. Can't say enough good about him. Absolutely part of that wonderful defense last year. But talent is talent, and I believe they're going to upgrade at that position. And I love Bam Martin-Scott as well. I think Bam Martin-Scott was a really good player. I think he's much more a pass rushing specialist than an in-space linebacker, but he worked on that part of his game and was fine. but talent is talent. And I think they'll upgrade at that spot as well. Notice I did not say anything about Demetrius Knight. I don't know how, I think these guys are probably just as talented. They're all taller and longer than D Knight, just as fast in some cases. But that leadership, you're just not. That went so far. I don't know if you can replace that.
Yeah, that's I think the biggest thing that they'll lose. Now, that's like kind of a for sure thing, and that's hard to replace just because you don't, from a leadership standpoint, and really kind of some of the on-field stuff too. You can't replace Demetrius Knight. And back to Jerron Willis real quick. Like the biggest kind of interesting thing with him is like he's up to 254 now. I think last year he was listed at in the 230s. Like they're not going to let him get up to 254 if they don't think he can't keep that speed and some of the stuff he can do off the edge. And that's really interesting because I think that 254 could help him when he comes in and help play the run up the middle in between the tackles and guards. He's kind of one that I've circled to see kind of what the talk is around him early on in preseason camp here at the beginning of the next month. But in that linebacker room, I think when you came off of last year, you wonder, what kind of drop off are they going to have? I'm not sure it's going to be as big as something because, again, you cannot replace Demetrius Knight from everything that he brought to the table because from a leadership standpoint, he was excellent on the field as well. But I think just when you got a guy like Fred Johnson who, you can see some of the similarities there. Shawn Murphy's apparently having really good spring and becoming a leader in that room along with Fred. And then Justin O, you see some of the stuff that you hear some of the stuff about him. You saw some of the flashes at Alabama from him. It's a really intriguing group that, if they can have a pretty solid start to the season, the secondary, I think is going to, kind of pick up right where they left off. It's a really intriguing defense.
These linebackers are going to look different this year too. Dude, all right. So how big was Mo Kaba really? I've seen met Kaba. He's no taller than I am, about 6 foot. Debo Williams is about 6 foot, maybe shorter. D Knight was only about 6 foot, 6'1". Bam Martin's got 6'2". Dude, Fred Johnson 6'3 and a half, 6'4". Shawn Murphy 6'3". Justin O 6'3 and a half.
Yeah,
Willis, you mentioned 6'2", 254. This is a bigger group, and they can all run. These linebackers look much more like Alabama's and Georgia's linebackers than they do what we've had at South Carolina.
Well, you think about it from Nick Saban's standpoint. Nick Saban signed off on both a Justin O and a Shawn Murphy, and he kind of fits what they looked for in that linebacker.
Yeah, Carolina, two interesting tidbits that nobody should really even care about. Number one, Carolina's 2 starting linebackers could both be from the state of Virginia. Yeah. Because Murphy's from Virginia and Fred's from Virginia. Number 2, they could potentially start. I don't know about start, but in their top 22, because Murphy and Justin O, I think, will rotate. They can have 3 players in their top 22 on defense that Nick Saban evaluated and recruited. I'll take that taste test. And I think Monkel Goodwine is probably, I think he just needed to play, and he did. I think he takes a step forward this year as a starter. And I've always been skeptical because he was a top 80 guy in the country. I was like, well, he'll probably never play that way. I don't know that he won't. Because I was told talent-wise, just talent. Talent doesn't mean performance, but all the time. But talent-wise, you have to be encouraged by that. Holding up against the run, Tiffany asked about in the chat box with Bryan Thomas Jr. I think that's the key, man, because Alex, see if you agree with me on this, and then we'll end the segment because we've kept you for too long here on your court appearance.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Really? Well, this is how you do.
If your shirt was orange, and I know you probably don't have much orange, but if you wore an orange shirt, and that would definitely look like this guy got a DUI in Spartanburg County Jail, Horry County. Like you've been in Myrtle Beach.
Numbers on here.
Yeah, live from Horry County. Yeah. But so Kyle Kennard last year, I think what I look at him, I don't have any doubt Carolina's got a lot of good pass rushers. I think they'll be able to rush the passer. It's getting to that now. Teams would not run wide on the Gamecocks. They passed a certain point during the year, and they quit running wide on them. Like, I'm not talking about outside zone. I'm talking out looping, tackle breaks, and the end doesn't set an edge. Kyle Kennard set the edge as well as anybody.
And a lot of that was the linebacker speed, too. Yeah. Linebacker Knight and those guys could get out there.
How many times did he blow a play up in the backfield running the ball? Try a little reverse, get cute. Kyle Kennard will take you out. You know, I don't you think that's something with Kennard specifically? We talk about his sacks and all that, but the run, the way he played the run, I think that's something that I'm looking at Thomas Jr. and whoever else is out there to step up with.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the biggest question. You don't doubt what Bryan Thomas or any of those other guys, Desmond Umeozulu or whoever, what they can do from a pass rushing standpoint. But the run, being able to hold up in the run is going to be the biggest key. And you can still talk about Dylan Stewart in that too. Like I think that's something that he's got to continue to improve on, just being better in the run defense. But that's where I think the linebackers, at times last year, if a team ran under Dylan Stewart, or if a team ran under a Kyle Kennard, like the linebackers are there, and that's just something with this defense. Like the run defense is going to be one of the big I guess maybe questions to have how it's going to go early in the year, because I think from a secondary standpoint, they got a chance to be pretty good there from some of the stuff they can do. And I think it's going to be interesting to see how they piece it all together, because I think Brandon Cisse, not to go too off much on the secondary here, but I mean, I'm interested to see how they piece that all together in the secondary. But your run defense especially is going to be the biggest thing with those interior guys and those other guys. Like, I think they can do it. It's just going to be going out there and showing it on the field. And I think week one they'll be tested a little bit with that, because of Virginia Tech, and with drones they can do a lot of that stuff. And Darius Stewart, I think, is going to be a pretty good running back for them too.
If I'm Virginia Tech, I'm looking number one at the wide zone. Carolina struggled to stop last year against Missouri, the outside zone. I'm also looking to test because what they'll do, they'll look at the data. They'll like, well, he's 250. Let's put a big body on him, Thomas Jr., and try to push him out the way. And they're less experienced at linebacker, maybe. They get, that's plausible. I'm curious to see how the Hokies attack the Gamecocks defense, but that's what I think would happen. Or they'll at least try it. Well, who knows though? Sometimes you'll sit here and say, I'll sit here and say something like that. This is how they should attack Carolina, because I have questions about this spot, and the team that plays them the first few weeks, they don't do it. And then they get in the game with somebody really good and they do it, and it's an issue. I don't know.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm just stupidly wrong about it. Bryan Thomas Jr. may be the best damn run edge setter in the history of college football.
And with Bryan Thomas, I think it's been some points where you kind of see him come in there on where it's obvious passing down situations where we maybe haven't had to see him consistently had to stop the run, just because they had other guys who were doing that. He was in there just to get after the quarterback. So not saying he can't do it, but it's just something that's going to be one of the questions that he has.
It's a question like everything else.
JC and Mad Dog Bully on the game.